Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, True Methods and StorageCraft. Our topic today is the MSP value problem, commanding higher prices. So a couple things I want to tell you before we get started is that although we're not sending out the slides today, we are recording this session and everyone will get a link so that you can review it. We're going to cover a lot of material, so this is one of those things you'll probably want to go back through or share with others. You'll be able to do that. If you have a question, put it into the GoToWebinar questions pod and we will be monitoring and we will get all of your questions answered. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Gary Peak. I'm the president of True Methods, and I'm very excited today to say that we have the Senior Director of Channel Marketing, Janine Edwards from StorageCraft with us. Hey, Janine.
Hey, Gary. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. This is not our first webinar together. So in your long career, first at ConnectWise before this, you and I have done a bunch of events and webinars together, right?
We sure have. I mean, I'm a child prodigy. I started when I was 15, so I've been doing it for a long time. So
that's great. So let's go ahead and listen. I'm really this content today. I'm really excited about. What we try to do is, we constantly bringing new concepts into our training program at True Methods, and then as quickly as we can, we take them to the public webinars and share them with as many people as possible. So I'm excited about the messaging today. It's very timely messaging for where the industry is, and so I hope everybody enjoys it, and I'm glad that you're here to help with some of the perspective. Real quick, and we'll bring this up at the end, but a couple things. You can register for a demo to see the awesome new technology at StorageCraft. If you go to storagecraft.com, there's the address. And you'll get a $10 Starbucks gift card, and also there's an email address you can email True Methods to get some special pricing or learn more about what we're doing with training and software and compliance standards. So without that, let's get right into the content. And here's where I like to start, Janine, where the MSP market is today. And I've been in this market. I've owned IT companies, and two of them, and trained thousands more for the last 20 years. I also was a child prodigy, and so I continually see the market evolve, but in the last 2 to 3 years it's been accelerated for a bunch of reasons. And today all MSPs have access to the same tools and technology.
Yep.
Awesome things like what you're doing, right? Where people now can offer stuff, really, regardless of the size of their company, they can offer a great stack. And those prices, right, are falling all the time. But one thing that does is prospects sometimes can't tell the difference between providers. And then when that happens, price becomes a factor. You look at, and you ran IT Nation for a bunch of years, I knew the names of every vendor early on that was in there and who owned all those software companies in the channel. Now, would you say there's almost an unlimited amount of tools available to people?
There are, and then the tools, like you said, though, that are rising to the top as far as brand and reputation start to look very similar when it comes to features and functions, right? So it starts to get tough to differentiate, right, from a solution provider's perspective, I think.
It does, and we're going to talk about today, as we talk about some of our key concepts about really, even when you're looking at some tool sets, maybe how to look at them a little differently than you have in the past. Consider some other perspectives that will help you. And these are the common issues. Look, I deal with this every day, okay, at True Methods. And, we've worked with thousands of MSPs around the world. Number one, adding new MRR, monthly recurring revenue. So getting new customers to pay you every month is a universal, challenge for MSPs. Being able to command the right price. Like, this is huge. We're going to talk about pricing today and what that means. And because of that, profitability is an issue for a big sector of this market. I'm going to say for about 70% of the marketplace, profitability is an issue. And when that happens, scalability into play. Like you reach what I call these impact zones. You get to a certain MRR and you get stuck. It could be 50,000, 100,000, 150 is a big one. I recently had one of my customers call me and say, Gary, I just passed the $200,000 a month mark again. So, what I'm going to suggest today is, what if these were not the real issues? What if the issues that we just talked about are really symptoms? And if you could identify the root cause, you could dramatically impact your results. And this is what happened to me. And I want to take just a couple minutes about my journey, because I think people will identify with it. And then we're going to get right to really a perspective that not only changed my business, but it literally has changed my life and a lot of other people's lives. So when I first started, I had a background in sales, Janine. So I consider myself a competent salesperson before I owned my MSP. And early on, before we transitioned to managed services, my sales skills transferred really well. So we were selling block time and projects and everything that I had learned was helping me in sales. So we were growing. Then when we launched the managed service business, something happened. My sales skills didn't translate as well. I was going out to customers and prospects to show them this new offering, and they weren't so easy to buy. Like I was expecting it to be easy. Like we bought some tools, we were going to be proactive, and there was so much resistance. I worked on those symptoms for a while, and I increased my activity, and all of that allowed me to go from, like, I would say, total failure to a sustained period of complete mediocrity. In other words, we could sell some people, but it just was an effort. Do you know what I mean? Like we were putting in so much effort for the progress that we were making, especially around profitability. And at some point, I said, listen, I have to be missing something. And then I got there. And once I identified the real issue, everything changed. We went from 0 to 7,000 endpoints under management. Our net profit margins got to over 30%. When I launched True Methods, we started teaching what we're going to talk about today, and we've seen many other companies get the same results. And during that time, I'll mention, over the past 6 years, I invested in another MSP and was able to get really similar results. So, everything we're going to talk about today, I live it every day, Janine, and you've watched me live a lot of it. And so, if we see anything today that doesn't match up with people that are listening and their experience, we want them to ask a question. It's okay. I can speak for Janine as well to say you're not going to hurt our feelings, right?
Right.
All right. So here's what it is, Janine. What MSPs really have is a value problem. When I was going out and failing with customers and prospects, none of them told me that my offering and my technology and concept stunk. No one ever said to me, wow, that really sounds stupid. They all said it, they all bobbleheaded me and saw some value in it. They just didn't sign the agreement with me, and they didn't want to change from their current vendor, or if they were one of our customers, they didn't want to spend more than they were spending. It was a value problem. And I think what happens, Janine, is many times MSPs confuse customer, CSAT scores with value. Like they'll say, oh, Gary, we just need help in sales because, our CSAT scores are, really high and we haven't lost a customer in 5 years. And what I say to them is, well, CSAT only tells you how happy your customers are. It doesn't tell you.
And at that time, right? Yeah.
At that time, or how valuable you are, right? So what tells you, what a better measuring stick is, how much new monthly recurring revenue do you sell, and at what average all-in seat price? And when I say all-in seat price, I mean take all of your recurring revenue divided by all the seats you have under management. That's your average price per seat. So if you sell a new customer and they have 20 seats and you sell them at $2,000 a month, you're selling that customer at $100 seat price. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So if you're not able to sell recurring revenue on a pretty consistent basis, and your price is not you command is not high enough, these are the two leading indicators that you have a value problem. One interesting thing, Janine, about our market, and I think you've seen this, when you think about all the partners you work with that are most successful, that have, that are adding recurring revenue consistently, almost in every case, they're the ones that charge the highest prices.
Absolutely, and they're not ever, sorry about it, they're not ever apologetic. That's what I find interesting. There's never an apologetic sort of feeling about it, just that's our price.
Yeah, and that's their value. And see, and if you think about it, in most other industries, the people with the low prices are usually the high volume people, right? And the people with that are the higher prices are niche players. But in our market, and we're going to learn why today, the people that command the higher prices are also the ones that are selling the most and scaling and take advantage of the market conditions today.
Okay, you're gonna talk about what you feel like is a goal for all-in seat price, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about it here, and again, we do some other content around Peakonomics where we actually give some of the math. I'm going to share a couple slides. I won't show all the calculations, but I will show you the concept of understanding seat cost and price today. But so here's a little chart. These are two MSPs, the one in green on top and the one on white on the bottom. They both manage 20 customers and 1,000 seats. One of them commands a price of $150 per seat and the other one only 100. So, I mean, obviously, with these 50 customers, the one MSP generates 50% more service revenue, okay? These two MSPs are in every single marketplace around the world. Okay, there's somebody who charges $100 a seat and says they can't charge more, and someone that charges $150. If you can figure out the difference between the two, and we're going to help you do it, you will control your destiny. And it's the same reason if you look at what the margins are. The top 25% of MSPs average 18% net profit. The bottom 25% are at break even or less, and the mean is 8%. So basically what that tells you is, you get to choose which of these MSPs you want to be, but I can tell you, you're not going to scale your business and you're going to run into impact zones at that lower seat price. I have members right now, True Methods customers, or we call them members, that they're between 165 and 175 a seat, because one of the things what's happened, Janine, is tools costs have gone up. Most people have more tools, just in the security stack alone, right? People have added stuff.
Right.
And if you're going to maintain what you should be targeting for tools and labor combined in your offering of 70% gross margin, you quickly see how it inches up. And those guys are getting it and they're selling it. And again, I think people are going to understand why as we review this today. From the highest level, we'll start with the concepts and then we'll get into some detail. I call it value-based pricing. So most people have technical value is what they sell. They're selling basically the quality of their support and their tool set. That's how they're justifying their price. And again, the issue with it is everybody has a pretty good tool set. The joke I make is you can walk into any solutions pavilion at any event. You just mentioned you just came back from Exchange. You could walk in there with a credit card and 10 minutes later you're an MSP, right?
Exactly, right.
Now, can that MSP
stack of tools to deliver, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but so can that MSP who's been in business 10 minutes offer the same value and results at a company that's been doing it for 10 years? No. Does the prospect know? Not always.
No.
Right? Not always. So where you need to live today is moving from technical value. You need to make your primary value business value. In other words, MSP, the model is built for explaining how you're going to manage their technology better. But what business leaders see value in is how the impact of that relationship you have with them is going to impact their business results. When you can make that jump, not only does your relationship with them change, but your conversation around price and value changes dramatically. Okay, your ability to compete becomes so much easier if you can learn to do this. So I like to use this as an example. This comes from a book called Predictably Irrational. So those two green dots that you see, they're the same size. But the one on the left looks larger because it's surrounded by relatively smaller blue dots. Now, picture, Janine, that is your monthly fee. That's your service offering. And on the one example, let's say you're $3,000 a month and their current vendor is $2,500. How would your dot look, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, it would look huge because it's $500 more you're charging them, or $1,000 more you're charging them. But on the other side, if you can surround that monthly fee with relatively larger blue dots, in this case, someone who's going to spend $3,000 or $4,000 a month with an MSP, that business is usually going to have like payroll and overhead, depending on their business, of $300,000 or $400,000 a month. So relatively speaking, whether we charge them $4,000 a month or whether someone charges them $3,500, we're a relatively small cost compared to those big costs. And if we can show them how our relationship, how our process, how what's unique to us can impact those big costs, they really won't care about $100 or $1,000 a month one way or the other. Do you believe me?
Yes. It's about perception too, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason I know this is I never went on sales calls with my second MSP because I didn't work in that business. Although I talked through, thousands of sales calls, but probably in my first MSP, I've been on 1,500 MSP sales meetings. And in almost every one of them, when I got there, two things were true. 99% of the time. One, they told me they were fine. Two, after I explained to them and they agreed that they weren't fine, to make them become their new definition of fine, I almost always had to charge them more, sometimes a lot more. And so if you can't learn to understand the value stack, you have to move price out of the way as an issue. So here's the way I like to think about this. I call this the MSP value stack. At the bottom of it is the current MSP model. So professional services, right? We have to do projects and fix things and deal with the traditional stuff. Centralized services, the three big things, a lot that goes into that now, but the things we do from our location, your RMM is a big piece of it, your security stack, and what you're doing at StorageCraft. Right? So business continuity, those three things are the three big pillars, right? And then there's infrastructure as a service and other tools and other kinds of monitoring, but centralized services. Support desk, we got to be able to respond when customers have an issue, and we got to be able to offer advice. And we're going to talk in detail about that. And so these things are important. You have to do them well, and you have to do them cost effectively, because the rest of where the value stack is built on top of those things. And it's around compliance, right? Doing technical alignment and showing customers the impact of their technology on their business. And then a true VCIO relationship where we're building a strategic roadmap for every one of our customers. The more time you spend, relatively speaking, at the top of this stack, the more valuable your offering will be. And so, Janine, all MSPs claim to be proactive, okay? What I've learned is, and I'm going to have people put that to the test today, you might not be as proactive as you think. And that means you might not be as valuable as you think. So I came up with this concept. I love concepts, right? I'm always coming up with concepts to try to explain things. I call it the MSP value percentage. And here's the idea. You think about time that you have as inventory, and I mean your technical time. So if you take all of your technical resources that you have on staff and multiply it by the number of hours that are available in a month, that's your inventory of time. And then you have to decide how you're going to spend that time. How much of it are you going to spend on the lower value tasks that we talked about, the bottom of the stack activities, and how much time is left after that for high value roles and process that'll change this model for you. Does that make sense, Janine?
Absolutely, yes.
So the more percentage of your time you spend on high value, or vice versa, the least time you spend delivering the stuff that they're expecting you to deliver, the more valuable your relationship becomes. So getting down to another level of detail, we break the business up into 5 delivery areas. Professional services, which is, for most people today, is still billable. Most people charge for projects. They don't include those, right, in their monthly fee. Then
Right.
there's the 3 proactive areas. Your centralized services, right? We talked about what the pillars to that were, and technology alignment, so that compliance piece of understanding their technology, where it is compared to your standards and industry standards, and then that consulting, or what they call VCIO relationship. So if the more time you spend there, the more valuable you are, and the less time you spend in support, tickets and alerts, is going to raise your percentage of value. So here's a little gut check that I developed for people. And we get a bunch of other math to help you do this that we teach, but I wanted something simple today that everybody can do. We're going to first determine the number of resources that work on Tickets Alert that are included in your offering. So that means all of the people on support desk, anyone you escalate things to, like pretty much anyone in your NOC who's working on tickets, everybody who's delivering and working on service tickets that aren't billable, right? That aren't projects.
So not like a triager, or not like a dispatcher, or not like a first responder.
I would say they are. Okay. Yeah, they would be included too, because they're involved in support and you have to pay them. So if they have to touch a ticket in any way, that's a cost. Included. Yep. I'm glad you said that, because people might have missed on that one. Now, if you divide the number of resources by the total number of seats you have under management, what that tells you is what the relationship is. Like, for each of those resources, how many seats can they manage? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so if that number comes out to be 140 or less, you have a 0 value percent. In other words, you're 100% reactive. That's all of your time. You get to 280, it's 50%. You get to 560, it's 75%. And I will tell you the magic number, and I'm going to prove it to you in 2 ways, but the magic number is about 500. As you approach a relationship between, so if you have 2,000 endpoints under management, that means you'd have 4 people involved in doing tickets. Okay?
Yeah, and I think that people are always doing this by just the simple utilization number, right? Which also changes when you're in managed services. It's such an interesting gut check that really up levels the ability to understand what's going on inside your organization. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I can turn this, I could convert this to a utilization rate, but this is an actual one. Sometimes people do it by adding up all their customers, and it doesn't match up with the amount of people they actually pay. Do you know what I mean? Because people report time in different ways, or they pad tickets. There's a whole bunch of ways to game the system. So this is really what you're living with. And so, most MSPs that I meet are about, when they do this test accurately, they're about 25% high value and 75% reactive. You want to be the opposite. You want to be 75 to 80% high value. The company on the left, they're the people that are at, they sell some people at 140 a seat, then they sell some at 75. They have all these different things that they sell, but in the end, if they add up all their recurring revenue and they divide it by all their seats, they come out on the lower end of that scale. The ones on the right, they tend to sell one package, people buy into it, and they have a higher price because they have higher value. Okay, here's a little Peakonomics. So let's talk about another way this impacts you. So we have a little formula. You can go through each of the delivery areas to determine what your cost per seat is. Centralized services, that one has all your tools and labor to deliver it. Technology alignment is labor, VCIO is labor, and support is labor. So let's just say that in this, and this is pretty accurate representation, about 45 bucks a seat cost, once people learn to figure it out, is $10 a seat, okay? So to get $10 a seat, you got to be around 500 bucks. You see 560 is $8 a seat. So you have to have that ratio that each one of those resources manages about 500 seats. So what happens is, let's just say that based on your math, your cost is $20 a seat, okay, for support. So you have the same cost of 45 bucks. If you're selling at $150 a seat, that's 70% gross margins. What that means is you and I, Janine, both have $45 of cost to spend, but you're spending $20 of it for support and I'm only spending $10 of it. So what's left, I have $35 a seat to spend and you only have $25. I have a huge competitive advantage over you.
Right.
Does that make
now,
sense?
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah,
go ahead.
Are some of your higher performing members, and when you're the folks that you're working with, are you suggesting that they pull this kind of stuff into their KPIs? It's very high level KPIs to keep an eye out, right, on, so that they can really work towards, closing the gap with an actionable number by looking at these things. Are you seeing that is a trend to include some of these into the metrics that they look at on a continuous basis?
100%. So the general ones we look at on a monthly and quarterly basis, but day to day, I didn't want to get into that level of detail here, but we have other ones like tickets per month per endpoint, average time on a ticket.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of metrics that lead up to this so that you can go backwards. As well as I'm going to show you the process, even if you don't track it. We have some people that don't track that stuff and they just implement the process that I'm going to tell you, and the numbers just fall into place for them. So some people want to understand it, other people just do it and live with the results of it. But I'm in favor of understanding the things that support this. So in getting back here, again, you can see that if you can look at what your time, your cost, your ratios are around support, that really tells you how valuable you are. Your intentions might be good, but if you're 75% of your resources are reactive, it is what it is, Janine. You only have so much time. Like, even though you want to do a better job of centralized services, even though you want to do some alignment, even though you really want to have a valuable relationship, you don't really have the time to do it. And this is what we call your superpower. And we talk specifically around compliance and VCIO. In other words, having a set of standards, doing continual alignment, and then using that technical information as the basis for a VCIO to build this rich relationship where they're able to sit with decision makers and build, high level relationship with every customer. This is what SMBs need today. They're in a much more complex environment and they need to do that. So here's the concept of standards and alignment. You develop the standards. I picture it like as this box. Then you see the blob. That's each of your customers' environment. We're always trying to move them into our box. But in a perfect, world, they would be completely in our box. But in the real world, they're always going to be in and around it, in and out of our standards. And our job is to show them, hey, here's where you're out of our standards. And based on your business, here's the impact that can make on you. Here's the business decision that you have to make. So it's really a business conversation as opposed to that technical conversation like this is old or replace it. And if you think about standards today, they fall into two categories. General standards around security and infrastructure, business continuity is huge. That's where you live every day, right? But then there's also industry standards, NIST, HIPAA, ISO. These are just some of the ones that are out there that, and as time goes on, all SMBs are going to be subject to more and more standards. So we always want to know, based on security standards and based on our standards, where our customers are compared to that. And so you develop standards for every area of technology. You leverage the industry ones that are out there. We like to set them up in like a yes-no methodology so you can clearly say, are they in or are they out of our standards, so that when a VCIO gets that information, they're able to analyze it in the same way every time. So one of the key things here is we suggest people create a dedicated role or function around the alignment process so they can do it continuously. This is 100% proactive role. Now think about that. There aren't very many 100% proactive roles in this business. The people that do centralized services end up doing tickets. Support, all they do is tickets. Professional services, they're implementing the projects. So if you even think about those roles, they tend, in intentions, are to be proactive, but this is a role that's 100%, so it adds a lot of value. And then you create an impact assessment based on compliance against the standards. Now that serves as the basis for your VCIO process. And this is where I really want to dig in, Janine. Okay,
Okay.
so we go from this compliance piece, standards and alignment. Now we move over to where this high value relationship should be. And again, the industry term is virtual CIO. So I think everybody understands what we talk about when we talk about that concept. So I'm going to ask a really important question because everyone says they're a trusted advisor. Are you a VCIO or are you really a VCO? And that stands for a virtual Captain Obvious. Look, everyone, like I said, they say they're a trusted advisor, but really, here's the advice they're given. Hey, your servers are old. You should replace them. Your backup doesn't work. You should use StorageCraft, which is a great recommendation to make, right?
Yeah.
Your email version is old. You should go to Office 365, or your licensing expired. You should renew it. This is advice that anyone could give, Janine. Like,
well, yeah, and it's they tend to do it too. You see it happening on an ongoing basis. They're like, here's a report of all the things we did about these things, right? And it's like they think that's yeah, right.
Or like you said, here's all the patches we installed.
Right. Yeah.
Here's all the tickets and time.
And now I'm a trusted advisor, right? And those things are important for sure, but I don't think they make you a trusted advisor, right?
And you know how you know? If you're an MSP, your customers should be investing for every dollar of MRR about 30 cents on the dollar of non-recurring services based on the advice that you give. In other words, the projects. So if you are $100,000 a month of recurring revenue, one, if they're paying you $150 a seat or more, and they're investing, if you have $100,000 a month, they're investing $30,000 a month, that base in non-recurring services, you're a trusted advisor. If not, they like you, they're just not taking your advice, right?
Right.
You're probably meeting with non-DMs, right? You're not meeting with the people in every account that control the budget and the strategy for that customer. So you can't really be a trusted advisor. How can you give them business advice if you're not meeting with those people? And if those meetings are centered on ticket reports and SLAs and patch statuses and alarms and hardware lifestyle and life cycle renewals, by definition, okay, you have a technical relationship only, and you are capped at the value of that technical relationship, no matter how awesome you and your people are. Okay.
Can you just get about that when you say decision makers, non-decision makers? Can you give like an example of a non-decision maker is, versus the decision maker in a typical small to medium-sized business?
Okay, someone who has 20, 30, 40 users, usually the decision maker, usually it's an owner or it's a C-level executive, okay, that works directly with the owner. These are the people that sit in their strategy meetings, determine their budgets and priorities every year and every quarter. It is not an office manager. It is not a technical representative. It might not even be the controller, right, who just does the books. It really is involved in the decision making of it. So that's what I mean by non-decision makers. They might have authority to upgrade a server or have some small budget, but they're not really seeing technology the way we want them to see it. And when you think about
the impact on the business, yeah, right.
There you go, exactly. So what we want to do is move from a technical to a business relationship, which means you got to build what I call a strategic profile, an in-depth business profile on every customer. If you don't know if you're not meeting with those decision makers, and if you don't know a lot about their business, I mean, what kind of business are they in? What are their challenges? What drives their growth? Are they a high margin provider, a low margins? What does their SWOT analysis look like? What does their business planning process look like? Who do they compete against? Are they a big player in a small market, a small player in a big market? If you don't know a lot about that business, how could you possibly be their virtual CIO? That would be like if I got hired as the CIO of a Fortune 1000 company, and the first day I got there, they said, okay, the first month we're going to train you on our business. And I said, I don't really need to know anything about your business. I'm good.
I got this. She's doing this for every single customer, no matter size, no matter the size.
No matter the size, this is the relationship
Okay.
you should have. I mean, you don't, it doesn't take as much time. There's some customers, maybe your top two, you meet with every month in their strategy sessions, and others quarterly, and some might be smaller. You do some by phone and you only see them, once or twice a year based on their size and complexity and what they spend with you. But the goal is to put them in a position to make, decisions. And technical alignment then and business impact, they're the foundation of how we do this. And this is a new graphic that I introduced at SchnitzFest, at my event this year, that I think has really helped people understand it, okay? Look, all SMBs today deal in a more complex environment, and they have these, I call them functional areas. They have operations, they have sales, they have HR, they have finance, and they have IT, okay? And does your customer view you as a functional area, or do they view you as another one of their SG&A expenses, like office cleaning and the people that water the plants and electric and phone and computer, and you're just another line item? And here's how you know, Janine, if they're treating you like an SG&A item, they care a lot whether you charge them $4,000 a month or whether you charge them $3,500. They care a lot. You know why? Because you want your SG&A to be lower, because every dollar of SG&A is another dollar of profit, and that's how they view it. I had sometimes have people to say, Gary, these business owners, they don't want to meet with me every quarter. And I say to them, hey, don't feel bad. They don't meet with the cleaning contractor either. Even though they're proactive, they water the plants before they die. Right?
I also, yeah, I find though that they're what everybody's probably thinking is getting that paradigm shift, changed, right? Having that paradigm shift if they're viewing you that way. I think that's tough, right?
Yeah, it's based on what you deliver. So usually the people that tell me that, and SG&A, this is their expense item. So this is sales, general administration, right? That would be your expense item. So somebody asked that question. But what happens is if your value percentage we talked about is low, you don't have roles and process to get to be a functional area. They should be treating you the same way they treat their accounting company and their legal advisors. In other words, think about accounting, Janine. Most companies do their own accounting, but they still pay a bunch of money to an accounting firm who does their audits, finishes their books, deals with knowing what's going on in the industry, how they make decisions about their business. We all have someone, hopefully everyone who's a business owner has someone they rely on. And whether your accounting company charges you $500 more a month one way or the other, you don't view the same way as the office cleaner because of the strategic value that they bring. And if you think about a small to medium-sized business, IT is way more strategic than finance. Their technology for a company that has 50, employees, their finances aren't as complex as their technology. Okay? Not only does IT support the other areas tactically, but it supports them strategically. So if you are not dealing with the decision makers, if they're not taking your advice, if you don't have roles and process aimed strictly on the left side here, you're going to continue to just work on symptoms. And it's a hard way to go, man. A really hard way to go.
And I think too, once you kind of understand, if you get that trust value where you can sort of start to see what their future is as far as budgets, right, what their strategy is, what their growth is, you can start to then flip the switch a little bit and create additional project-based business based on what they're telling you, right? Which is sort of an interesting way to grow the install, right?
Oh, listen, the dirty little secret of managed service providers is if you really look at it and you look at how much money they make in a quarter, and then you look at how much non-recurring services and hardware margin they do, it's really important. So when you can go from 20%, okay, if you go from 20,000 a month of project revenue through this process to 30,000 a month or 35 or 40,000 a month, that usually goes right to the bottom line because most people have unutilized resources. They can be more effective.
Yeah.
I mean, it only takes one person to build 20 grand a month.
The only way you'll know that that's happening is to have these kinds of conversations, right? That's proactive.
Yeah, well, if
Yeah.
you, yeah, if you don't get, like, I call this the strategic roadmap. So this is like a little screenshot from our software, my IT process, but I'll use it to explain the concept. One, a strategic profile of the business. Two, you have these things, backup, business applications, communications. You have these different areas, and based on the alignment, you're telling them where they're in and out of alignment on these things and what it means to their business. Then you're making a strategic roadmap for them. They're looking at it on a quarter by quarter and a year by year basis. And for most of top MSPs, they have it defined from a high level over 3 years, and then pretty defined over a year, and then each quarter is pretty dialed in. So based on this, you should know what you have recommended across your customer base going into the quarter. And you should kind of know what projects are going to get signed. And it usually is pretty accurate. Some from last quarter will slip into this quarter, and some from this quarter will slip in the next. But for the most part, people do exactly what you plan. They don't change their mind. They plan this in advance. You're sitting down and say, hey, here's what we talked about for this quarter, and you're getting the proposals out, and they kind of know the ballpark on them already, and they're signing them, Janine. So think about it. If you can command a higher price and at the same time generate more non-recurring services, do you see why top people get 25 and 30% net margins while
Yep.
other people are break even? It's a massive impact on your business.
Yep. And that's an interesting concept, I think, to think about, because we're always thinking about, as we saw the managed services market, grow, always get more recurring revenue. And yes, you do want that. But like you just said, if you can generate non-recurring revenue from this process, that's gravy in some ways,
Well, think about this. They take our advice and they implement StorageCraft, okay? They take our advice and they move their Exchange server out to Office 365. They take our advice and they put a new backbone system in. What do you think happens to the number of reactive tickets and time that we are dealing with after they've taken all of our advice and we've upgraded that stuff?
Goes down, labor goes down, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So now you understand what we teach. If you focus on this process we've talked about, and we've outlined it in detail about standards, alignment, impact, and strategy, if you devote resources and you get good at it, all of these things, all of those symptoms change. Your value goes up, your non-recurring revenue goes up, your reactive time goes down. When those three things happen, it moves all the other metrics in your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, you want to have a little fun with something I call Hey Gary?
I love Hey Gary. It's one of my favorites.
Hey Gary, your price is $1,000 a month more than the other two vendors that we interviewed. What gives? Love, a skeptical prospect. I have probably had this, I can't even tell you the number of times I've had this conversation in my career. And sometimes it was $500, sometimes it was $1,500, but let's just say, we're at $5,000 a month and the other two people are at $4,000 a month. And so let me kind of take you through how this conversation went. I said, hey, Mr. Prospect, I got your message and we're $1,000 a month more. Is that an issue? And he said, well, yeah. He's like, it's $1,000 a month more. And I'm like, let me ask you a question. If we were only $500 a month more, would we be having the same conversation? He said, no, probably not. So right off the bat, Janine, I know that I had the deal at $500 a month more. So that only took 10 seconds. So let's keep going, okay?
Right.
So
right.
I said to him, well, the question you have to ask yourself from your spot is, we talked about three things, big things that you felt were an issue with your current provider while you're making a change. Two of them, you told me you couldn't live with, and you felt they were impacting your business and other things. Are you 100% confident that any three of the vendors that you would choose are going to solve those problems? 100% confident. Because if you are, you probably wouldn't spend even $500 more. In fact, I don't think you would spend $1 more. And he said, well, no, Gary, the reason I'm calling you is because we like you guys better, but just $1,000 is is a lot of money. And I said to him, remember what we talked about with those issues? And we related everything back to, our process that we implement, and kind of explaining what we talked about today around standards and impact and this relationship, and how we would put them in a position to make decisions, and that those things they talked about were really symptoms. And I said, to do that, that's the investment in the roles and process here. And so what if your only two choices were to spend, $500 more than you really want to spend, and knowing that you're going to solve those things short and long term, or spending $500 less than you want, $1,000 less than you could, and have things get a little better. If that was your choices, only two choices.
That's like a win-win. Yeah. Right.
What would you do? And he paused for a second, and then I heard him giggling a little bit, and the deal got done, and they stayed a customer of ours for many years. Okay. This is what it's about, Janine. We need to make customers choose between results, not between vendors and technology. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we got some questions here, and we're going to get to them, Janine. We got a couple good questions, and we're going to get to them as we get through this. So, and I'll leave a few minutes for that. So think about this. This is kind of putting it all on one page. Think about that value stack, right? How important it is to do the things at the bottom of that stack really well and really cost effective, because everyone's assuming that you can. And then building on that with alignment and impact and that strategy and that roadmap and that relationship. And if you think about this process of alignment and VCIO done right, it drives down that support and it drives up that professional services. Right. So you increase that percentage of value, and all of those things change. Reactive percentage goes down, price per seat goes up, the ability to create separation in the sales process. So in that example that I gave, it's really frustrating to other vendors. And when I was out there competing, the more they dropped their price, the easier it was for me to be able to win in those situations and prove my point. So their lower price became a competitive disadvantage, and my higher price and the difference between their cost and mine became the reason that people would buy from me. Doesn't that sound awesome?
Yeah, it really is. And it's a total, I really do believe it's a total paradigm shift that everyone in this industry has to have in order to do this. You have to change it in your own mindset first, right?
Yeah, and you know what? It wasn't as critical 3 or 4 years ago, because you could still create some separation at the bottom of the stack. But right now, the good news is our target market is changing, okay? People that have 10, 15 users, some of them have very little needs today. They use Salesforce and Trello, they don't have the same needs. So we're losing a little bit of the bottom of the market, but the middle of that market, people that have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 seats, they've already made the decision to outsource some of all of what they do. So our addressable market is astronomically bigger today. That's why you see all this venture capital money, all this equity money coming into MSPs and coming into channel companies. They chase an addressable market. But here's the caveat, Janine. That addressable market, they basically need the top of the stack. Some of them can even do the
right. It's like that's what they're looking for. You right, exactly.
This is why it's more urgent now, and why you see the separation in the marketplace, why you see the bottom 25% at or below break even if they took an actual owner salary, and you see growth and real high profitability at the top 25%. It's all based on where they are. So what we try to do when we work with people is we try to teach them the math and all that stuff, but the number one, we try to get them to implement the process with their customers. Because if they implement the process and they start building value, those metrics will follow along, right?
Yep.
So here's what we want people to do. Number one, calculate your value percentage. Go back through this webinar again. It's a simple calculation. Then begin to define those proactive roles we talked about around alignment and VCIO and protect them, build a wall around them, and you'll start to lower noise and increase value. Janine, I will tell you one thing, this is the gold rush. So there was just an article in Channel E to E with me last week because we sold our stock in our MSP back to the original owner, the president. He's scaled enough, and he's a young guy in his early 30s where he could afford to buy us out. And it was a great story, right? But one of the questions Joe Panettiere asked me was, how was the new MSP building it compared to the first one? And what I said was, it was easier because we understood these things and the market is so much bigger. In other words, the addressable market, how much people will spend, our average customer size per month, it's so much better now. If you can get over to the other side of this market, it is the gold rush, Janine. There's never been the ability to sell more recurring revenue at a higher price than today.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a huge opportunity if you take the time to go through, methodologies and processes like you're suggesting, for sure.
We got a couple great questions. So we have a few minutes real quick. We gave all content during this, right? No commercial. So we're just going to have a couple slides. You're going to talk about what you're doing with StorageCraft, a couple slides about True Methods, and then stick around because we have 3 really good questions.
Right, and you talked so much about standards, and I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle, and the core of business continuity. And I think StorageCraft is relative, is really well known for our sort of legendary Shadow Protect product, right? We were first out of the gate with some great technology. We've added to the family for the larger VARs and MSPs with our one blocks, and we're very excited because we also understand the importance of standardization and impact on solution provider businesses. And we've gone very deep into innovation mode and very deep in investment mode. And we've created a product launch that we just launched this week that does just what you talked about, allows solution providers across the entire business continuity category to standardize on business continuity. And those new products, if you want to flip to the next slide, we're really excited to bring to the table. That is our Shadow Safe product, right? It's like a supercharged, right, to use your term that I love to steal from you, supercharged data protection and recovery that involves a beautiful, hybrid approach to physical and virtual, as well as agent and agentless. So there is no reason to not standardize, and we also allow you to sort of go up the stack as you look into customers with larger, more complex data needs with our OneSafe product, right, which is a converged offering, breaking down silos of data and storage. And we want to show this to you. We want to share this with you so that you can think about the impact of choosing in that cornerstone of business continuity a standard that really not only is best-in-class technology, but spans the entire, probably, like you said, one of the most critical and will remain the most critical offerings in your stack, right? So
when you think about what's funny is, what I tell people, when you think about security, one of the most important tools you have in security today is your business continuity. Because when all else fails, and someday it will, this is what we have left. This is our last stand once you're compromised, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's arguably most critical. And like you said, if you are able to standardize, drive standardization around it, lowers that labor cost, right, as you put an SME on it, and the ability to not have to pick and choose a vendor to create sort of a cobbled together right fit. We have the right fit, right? So we're excited about it.
So let me just use this real quick. I want to just take 1 minute because I can kind of relate this and back. Again, this is all about content, right? Relating it back to the content. So each tool you evaluate, you look at your business continuity tool. 1, you want to standardize on a tool. Okay. 2, you look at a couple things. You look at the cost of it, obviously, but more importantly, what's the impact we're going to make in reducing risk for our customer and for us? And then you alluded to one thing, you went over it quickly, which is, what are my labor costs? So if I have one tool in one tool set, whether, business continuity, you can look at the other tool sets, we're trying to have the least amount of labor involved in managing these things. And that's way more expensive than any tool. And I feel like people skip over it. You know what I mean? When they're
Yeah.
evaluating a tool set.
Especially over
And
time, right? Like you said, like the
yes,
least amount of labor over time is a very critical thing to think about and look at.
yep. Okay. So look, this is a really good time right now to go and check out what you guys are doing. So let me slip. So you can have a virtual cup of coffee on StorageCraft. Janine, they can go see. This is all new stuff. I just read about it in Channel E to E. It sounds awesome. And people can actually go and register for a demo, and you'll even give them a $10 Starbucks gift card if they go to this address, correct?
Yep, it's an easy address, storagecraft.com/safe demo, and register for one of our upcoming demos to see the impact of simplicity. We have this awesome policy orchestration piece of the puzzle that we're driving into that people have loved here at Exchange to look at. Spend some time with us and we'll give you a cup of coffee to do so, and you'll see some really cool stuff that will allow you to really get sticky with this particular important cornerstone of your stack.
Awesome. Okay. And then real quick, I'll run through, because you can give us a call if you want more, but just True Methods, here's what we do. We have two basic things. We provide training. We have over 200 hours of role-based training on every aspect, from sales, service delivery, Peakonomics, every aspect of building a top MSP. And then our software, MyIT Process, which is the platform that allows you to build the process of standards alignment in that VCIO process. So a complete framework. We also have built out standards. So we've built out some general technology standards, over 300 questions, and we've taken the top security standards and we've built them into MyIT Process. So we have a bundle right now that you get our training, our software, and we'll also, you can choose some of the standards that you would like, and they get uploaded right into MyIT Process, fully built out and ready to use within MyIT Process. So. And again, if you want more information, there's the how you get to the Starbucks gift card if you register for the demo for StorageCraft, and for us, MyIT Process, our training, software, and compliance standards. If you want to learn more or hear about some special pricing we're offering for this, just go to send an email to gary.promo@truemethods.com. That's TRU methods, no E in true. gary.promo@truemethods.com. All right, we have a couple minutes and I want to take a couple questions here. So one person asked, does True Methods help an MSP develop the client assessment? Yeah, that's pretty much what MyIT Process does. You know, we'll teach you how to take your current standards and put them in there, but we'll also get you started with some easy ones that I showed you. And Carson says, hey, does labor really go down though? You have to provide training in reactive issues for customers and new products and services. 100%. It goes down. Let me tell you what the difference is, Carson, of why your costs go down. Reactive service is the most expensive thing there is. The other roles, when I have a VCIO, I know how many clients they can support and how many seats that is. I already know my cost per seat. It's the same every month. The same thing with technology alignment. The same thing with centralized services, Janine. You can do them in a way where you know what your costs are and they don't change month to month. But guess what? The number of tickets and alerts, if that changes and that goes up, your costs go up in that month. So you don't mind spending time. If it's baked into your seat cost at 70% gross margin, it's all good. Am I explaining that in a way you can understand it, Janine?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, we're a big StorageCraft partner. Yay, an MSP.
Woo-hoo!
How your would apply to a hyper-competitive markets like Seattle. So this is a great question. First off, Seattle, I'm going to disagree that it's a hyper-competitive market. I mean, if you want to go to Chicago or Boston, Austin, and guess what? I have people in those markets and in Seattle that are getting 150, 160, 170 a seat. Okay, so. And guess what, Janine? I have people in markets that have 100,000 people population in it that are also able to do it. Again, this is really hard. If you're living in, this person's living in Seattle, or any other market, and they're experiencing it where they're at $100 a seat and their customers are complaining they already charge much and they're already as much or more than some competitors, it may seem like you have a market problem or a pricing problem. Trust me, you have a value problem. If you implement the process and the concepts we talked about today and approach it in this way, okay, you'll start to have different conversations with customers, different conversations with prospects, and I personally know several MSPs in the Seattle marketplace that are doing it successfully, and so do you, Janine, right? It's a great marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Definitely,
In fact,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming there in a couple weeks. I'm coming there for a ConnectWise user group meeting, so love
Shout out
Seattle.
to ConnectWise.
Yay! Okay. All right, all right. I got a little. We both got a couple plugs here. StorageCraft partner, you're awesome, and recently began to implement True Methods, and it is the key to MSP success. Just saying. So we got a couple. Plugs. So I think I answered most of the questions that are here. It looks like we got to all of them, and we're a little bit over the hour, so let's be respectful. But Janine, this was super fun, wasn't it?
It's always fun to hang out with Gary Pica. And I also want to let everyone, the StorageCraft partners that are on the phone will know that we will also have this recording in the new portal. So Gary's been nice enough to allow us to do that. So you'll be able to go back also, in addition to the information he's going to send in the link, you'll be able to access it in the portal, learn about this value process that he's given us. And that's really exciting. So we appreciate that, Gary, very much.
Yeah. And also, can I say that I'm going to record some other stuff, and we're going to do a couple future things together, and you're going to put more awesome content on your portal.
You're going to have more True Methods content going to be available for all StorageCraft partners. And if you're not a StorageCraft partner, very easy to become one. So no obligation to just become a partner. So come to the demo, hang out with me and Gary more in the future.
Absolutely. So again, in closing, thanks, Janine, and head over storagecraft.com/safe demo or email gary.promo@truemethods.com. Even if you just want to talk to one of the people you'll talk to are really knowledgeable from True Methods, and they'll just give you some advice and help you and point you in the right direction. Oh, and someone says one blocks rocks.
All right. Wait till you see one safe. It's going to rock even harder. So excited to show you that.
Awesome. There's a couple detailed questions came in the end. If you email gary.promo@truemethods.com, somebody from my team will reach out to you, Vince and John, and they'll answer your questions in detail. They'll help you out with it. No problem. All right, Janine, you make it a great day.
You too, Gary. Thanks so much.
Okay, bye.